The dinner plate was heavier than it should have been. My wrists screamed in protest as I lifted the trio of entrees onto my forearm, the familiar ache reminding me of last night's grip. Derek's fingers digging into bone when I'd asked why he came home at 3 in the morning smelling like cheap perfume and expensive whiskey. Don't drop them, Olivia. You can't afford to drop them. I moved through Romano's dining room with practiced efficiency, weaving between tables where Chicago's elite pretended not to notice the help. The restaurant hummed with wealth, crystal chandeliers casting warm light over white tablecloths, the quiet murmur of business deals disguised as casual dinner conversation, the clink of silverware against plates that cost more than my monthly rent. Branzino for you, sir, the risotto, ma'am, and the osso buco. I placed each dish with steady hands despite the tremors trying to work their way up my arms. Smile. Always smile. Tips paid for the bruise cream I bought in bulk from the drugstore. Thank you, the woman said without looking at me. I was invisible here. That's what made Romano's perfect. I could hide in plain sight. Just another waitress in black slacks and a white button-down, forgettable and safe. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I retreated to the kitchen, pushing through the swinging doors into controlled chaos. Marco, the head chef, barked orders in rapid Italian, while line cooks moved with military precision. The heat hit me like a wall, sweat immediately beading on my forehead. Olivia, table 12 needs water, Jenny said as she passed, her arms loaded with dirty dishes. She was the only other server who'd lasted more than 6 months here. Romano's had standards that bordered on impossible. One mistake, and you were gone. I couldn't afford to be gone. My reflection caught in the stainless steel of the walk-in cooler as I filled a water pitcher. 28 years old, and I looked 40. Dark circles I couldn't quite cover with makeup. Cheekbones too sharp from skipped meals. Eating meant spending money I needed for rent. And besides, Derek got angry when I ate his food from the apartment. Hair pulled back so tight it gave me headaches, because loose hair earned me lectures about looking sloppy, about embarrassing him, about how lucky I was that he put up with someone so pathetic. Stop it. Work. Just work. Table 12 was in the corner, the best seat in the house with a view of the Chicago River glittering with city lights. I'd served that table 100 times. It was always reserved. Always empty until exactly 8:30, always occupied by the same group of men in expensive suits who spoke in low voices and never complained about anything. Tonight was different. Tonight, there was only one man. I approached with the water pitcher, my standard, greeting ready. Good evening. Can I start you with... He looked up, and the words died in my throat. I'd seen him before from a distance, always surrounded by his associates, always commanding the room without seeming to try. But up close, Dante Moretti was devastating in a way that had nothing to do with conventional handsomeness and everything to do with presence. Dark hair swept back from a face composed of sharp angles and harder edges. Eyes so dark they appeared black in the candlelight, currently fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin prickle with awareness. Late 30s, maybe 40, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than I made in 6 months. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow, the only imperfection in an otherwise carefully controlled exterior. Water, he said, his voice low and smooth with the barest trace of an Italian accent. Not a question, a statement, as if he'd already known what I was about to offer. I poured with hands that wanted to shake but didn't dare. The silence stretched between us, heavy with something I couldn't name. When I finished, I stepped back, ready to recite the specials and disappear back into my comfortable invisibility. What's your name? The question caught me off guard. In 2 years of serving this table, no one had ever asked my name. Olivia, sir, I'll be taking care of you this evening. Can I tell you about our specials? How long have you worked here, Olivia? This was wrong. Customers didn't make small talk with waitresses at Romano's. They ordered, ate, paid, and left. Especially not customers like Dante Moretti, who everyone knew owned this restaurant along with half the businesses in River North, and whose business interests extended into territories the staff knew better than to discuss. 2 years, sir. The specials tonight include your wrists. I froze. The water pitcher suddenly weighed 1,000 pounds. His gaze had dropped to where my left hand gripped the handle, where my sleeve had ridden up just enough to expose the purple-yellow bruises circling my wrist like a grotesque bracelet. Derek's fingers, immortalized in broken capillaries and damaged tissue. I yanked my sleeve down, heart hammering. I'm clumsy. I fell. Don't. One word, soft but absolute. Don't insult either of us with lies. The dining room felt too small suddenly, too hot, the walls pressing in. I couldn't breathe right. Couldn't think past the panic clawing up my throat because this was it. Someone had noticed. Someone had seen, and now everything would fall apart. The specials, I said again, desperate to redirect, to go back to invisible, to unseen. We have... Sit down. I can't, I'm working, I have other tables. Sit. Down. Not aggressive, but there was steel underneath. The tone of a man accustomed to being obeyed. My legs betrayed me, folding into the chair across from him before my brain could overrule them. I kept my eyes down, focused on the white tablecloth, on the way the candlelight made shadows dance across the expensive fabric. Look at me, Olivia. I couldn't. If I looked at him, if I let him see whatever was written on my face, the careful walls I'd built would crumble. 2 years of pretending everything was fine, of surviving shift after shift, of making it through one more day, it would all fall apart. Please, I whispered. I need this job. I can't afford to make mistakes. Just let me bring you dinner and... Who did this to you? The gentleness in his voice was worse than any demand could have been. It slipped under my defenses like a knife between ribs, sharp and unexpected and devastating. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. I finally looked up, meeting those impossibly dark eyes, and saw something there that made my breath catch. Anger, yes, but controlled, banked like coals waiting for oxygen. And underneath it, something that looked almost like concern, which was impossible because men like Dante Moretti didn't concern themselves with broken waitresses and their pathetic problems. Why? The question escaped before I could stop it. Why would you possibly care? He studied me for a long moment, and I felt exposed under that gaze, like he could see every bruise, every lie, every moment of carefully maintained survival. Because I've spent 2 years watching you work this room like a ghost, he said finally. Efficient, invisible, perfect. Never a mistake, never a complaint, never anything but professional competence. But in the last 3 months, something changed. You started moving differently, like you're in pain. You wear long sleeves even in summer. You flinch when people move too quickly near you. He leaned forward slightly. And tonight, you have fingerprint bruises on both wrists that are no more than 24 hours old. The clinical accuracy of his observation made me nauseous. He'd been watching me. For how long? How much had he seen? I fell, I repeated, but even I could hear how hollow it sounded. Olivia? My name sounded different in his mouth, like it meant something. I'm going to ask you one more time, and I need you to answer honestly. Who is hurting you? The fight drained out of me all at once, exhaustion rushing in to fill the space. What was the point? He had already seen everything. The bruises, the fear, the the careful way I moved through the world trying not to attract attention or anger or anything that might set Derek off. My boyfriend, I heard myself say. Derek. We've been together for 8 months and my voice cracked. It started small, little things, criticizing my clothes, my friends, how I spent money. Then it was grabbing my arm too hard during arguments. Then pushing. Then, I couldn't finish. Couldn't put into words the escalation, the way violence had become our new normal. The terror of wondering which version of Derek would come home each night. Where do you live? Why does that matter? Because you're not going back there. Tonight. I actually laughed, the sound brittle and slightly hysterical. I have to go back. All my things are there. My clothes, I'll have people collect your belongings. He pulled out his phone, fingers moving across the screen with casual efficiency. You'll stay in one of my properties until we figure out a permanent solution. You can't just... I don't even know you. You're my customer. I'm your waitress. You can't just decide to... I own this restaurant, Olivia. I also own the building your apartment is in, which means technically I'm your landlord too. His eyes met mine again, and I don't allow domestic violence in my properties. The revelation that he owned my building should have surprised me more than it did. Men like Dante Moretti owned half of Chicago. Why not my rundown apartment complex in Ukrainian Village? Derek will come looking for me. The thought made my chest tight with panic. He'll be angry that I didn't come home. He'll think I'm cheating or trying to leave him, and when he gets angry, let him come. Something dangerous flickered across Dante's face. I'd welcome the conversation. The quiet menace in those words sent a chill down my spine. This was a man who dealt with threats as casually as I dealt with dinner orders, and probably with far more permanent solutions. I can't accept this. I don't take charity, and I definitely don't. This isn't charity. This is me ensuring the safety of someone in my employ. He stood, buttoning his jacket with smooth, practiced movements. Marco, he called toward the kitchen, his voice carrying easily across the dining room. The head chef appeared instantly, wiping his hands on his apron. Yes, Mr. Moretti? Olivia is taking the rest of the night off. Have someone cover her tables. Of course, sir. I stood too, panic rising. Wait, I need to work. I need the tips. I can't afford to just... You'll be paid for the full shift plus overtime. Dante's hand was suddenly at the small of my back, gentle but inexorable, guiding me toward the kitchen. Go get your things. My driver is bringing the car around. I didn't agree to this, but I was already moving, my body obeying him while my mind screamed protests. In the small employee locker room, I grabbed my purse with shaking hands. This was insane. I was getting into a car with a man I didn't know, a man who everyone whispered about in careful voices, a man whose business interests definitely weren't all legal. But when I thought about going back to the apartment, about Derek's face when I walked through the door late, about his hands and his voice, and the particular quality of silence before violence erupted, getting in Dante Moretti's car seemed like the safer option. And that realization, more than anything else that had happened tonight, told me exactly how far I'd fallen. The car was exactly what I'd expected. A black Mercedes with windows so tinted I couldn't see inside until the driver opened the rear door. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne, all dark wood accents and careful luxury. Dante was already inside, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Italian that I couldn't follow. He gestured for me to sit, and I slid onto the seat beside him, careful to leave as much space as possible between us. The door closed with a solid, final sound. We were moving before I could change my mind. I watched Chicago slide past through the window, the glittering river, the towering buildings, the Friday night crowds enjoying their freedom, while I sat trapped in a stranger's car feeling like I'd just stepped off a cliff into empty air. Where are we going? My voice came out smaller than I'd intended. Dante finished his call and tucked the phone away. My building in Gold Coast. You'll have your own apartment, your own space. Security is excellent. No one gets past the lobby without clearance. Gold Coast, where penthouses started at 2 million and went up from there, where people like me didn't exist except to clean or serve or otherwise maintain the lifestyles of the wealthy. I can't afford Gold Coast rent. There is no rent. The apartment is mine, empty, and currently serving no purpose. You'll be doing me a favor by occupying it. The lie was transparent, but I was too tired to argue. Too tired to do anything except watch the city lights blur and wonder what Derek was doing right now. Whether he'd already noticed I wasn't home, whether his anger was building like a storm I wouldn't be there to weather. My phone buzzed in my purse. Once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession. "Don't answer that," Dante said quietly. "It's him. If I don't answer, he'll get suspicious. He'll let him be suspicious." Dante's hand covered mine where I'd been reaching for my purse. His touch was warm, careful, completely different from Derek's grabbing hands. "Olivia, you need to understand something. The moment you got in this car, everything changed. You're under my protection now, which means Derek Foster is about to learn there are consequences for putting his hands on what's mine. What's mine?" The possessive phrasing should have alarmed me. Instead, it sent a different kind of shiver through me. Awareness, dangerous and unwanted, of the man sitting close enough that I could feel his heat. "You don't know anything about me," I said. "Why would you do this?" "I know enough. I know you work every shift available. Never call in sick. Never complain. I know you're intelligent. You remember every regular's preferences. Anticipate needs before they're voiced. I know you're stronger than you realize, because you've survived 8 months of abuse and still show up every day with a smile." He turned to face me fully. "And I know that men who hurt women don't deserve the oxygen they breathe." The vehemence in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't abstract concern or performative chivalry. This was personal somehow, raw and honest in a way that made me see him differently. "Someone hurt someone you loved," I said softly. Not a question. His jaw tightened. "My mother. My father's temper got the better of him one too many times when I was 12. By the time I was old enough to do something about it, she was already gone." The confession was delivered matter-of-factly, but I heard the old pain underneath. I swore then that I would never allow that kind of violence in my sphere of influence. So no, Olivia, this isn't charity or random kindness. This is me keeping a promise I made over a casket. We pulled up to a building that screamed wealth, all glass and steel and doormen in uniforms. The driver opened my door and I stepped out onto a sidewalk I had no business being on, feeling like an imposter in my waitress clothes and secondhand shoes. Dante's hand found the small of my back again, steady and grounding. "Come, let's get you settled." The lobby was marble and gold with a chandelier that probably cost more than I'd make in 5 years. The doorman nodded respectfully to Dante. "Good evening, Mr. Moretti," and didn't even glance at me, as if beautiful women being escorted into the building at 10 p.m. was completely routine. Maybe it was. The elevator rose silently, numbers climbing. 15, 20, 25. We didn't stop until 42, the top floor. And when the doors opened, it was directly into an apartment that made me forget how to breathe. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Chicago like a glittering jewel box. The space was all clean lines and expensive taste, decorated in shades of cream and gray with splashes of deep blue. Art on the walls that was probably original. Furniture that looked sculptural and intimidating. "This is too much," I whispered. "This is the guest apartment. My penthouse is upstairs." Dante moved through the space, turning on lights, showing me the kitchen, the bedroom, the bathroom that was larger than my entire current apartment. Everything you need should be here. If it's not, tell me and I'll have it brought. I stood frozen in the living room, overwhelmed by the unreality of it all. 12 hours ago, I'd been lying in bed trying not to cry while Derek slept off his anger beside me. Now, I was standing in a Gold Coast apartment with a man who'd essentially kidnapped me for my own protection. Why are you really doing this? I asked again, needing to understand. Dante stopped his tour and turned to face me. In the soft lighting, he looked less intimidating, more human. Because I've watched you for 2 years, Olivia. Watched you work harder than anyone in that restaurant. Watched you handle difficult customers with grace. Watched you mentor new servers. Watched you bring light into a room just by being competent and kind. He took a step closer. And then I watched that light start to dim. Watched fear replace confidence. Watched you become a shadow of who you were. Tonight, when I saw those bruises, I realized I couldn't watch anymore without acting. You don't know me, I repeated, but it sounded weaker now. Then let me. Another step, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Stay here. Heal. Let me handle Derek. And maybe, when you're ready, let me show you what it's like to be with someone who would cut off his own hand before raising it against you. The promise in his words, the intensity in his eyes, the careful way he held himself like he wanted to touch me but wouldn't without permission. It was all too much. I burst into tears. Not delicate crying, but ugly, body-shaking sobs that I'd been holding back for 8 months. All the fear and pain and exhaustion poured out while I stood in a stranger's apartment wearing the bruises of my boyfriend's violence and accepting protection from a man who should terrify me but somehow didn't. Dante caught me when my legs gave out, lifted me like I weighed nothing, and carried me to the couch. He sat with me in his lap, one hand stroking my hair while I cried into his expensive suit jacket and destroyed any pretense of dignity I might have maintained. I've got you, he murmured. You're safe now. I promise you're safe. And God help me? I believed him. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the disorienting realization that I had no idea where I was. The bed beneath me was obscenely comfortable, Egyptian cotton sheets that felt like sleeping on clouds, a mattress that had somehow cradled every ache in my body and soothed them overnight. Then, memory crashed back. Romano's, Dante Moretti, the bruises he'd seen, getting into his car, crying myself into exhaustion while he held me with a gentleness I'd forgotten existed. I sat up too quickly and pain lanced through my ribs. Derek's parting gift from 2 nights ago when I'd questioned where the rent money had gone. The bedroom was as beautiful as I remembered, all soft grays and whites with that impossible view of Chicago spread out like a promise. My phone sat on the nightstand, screen dark. I'd turned it off last night at Dante's instruction, unable to face the barrage of texts and calls from Derek demanding to know where I was, why I wasn't home, what I thought I was doing, disappearing without permission. Permission. When had I started needing permission to exist? A soft knock at the door made me jump. Olivia, are you awake? Not Dante's voice. Female, older, with a warm quality that reminded me of my grandmother. Yes, I called, my voice rough from crying. The door opened to reveal a woman in her 60s with silver-streaked dark hair pulled into a neat bun, wearing casual clothes and an expression of maternal concern. I'm Elena. I manage Mr. Moretti's properties and occasionally pretend to manage him, though he's far too stubborn to listen. Her smile was genuine. He called me early this morning and asked me to bring you some things. I hope I got the sizes right. She gestured to shopping bags lined up near the dresser, expensive logos I recognized from Michigan Avenue boutiques I'd never dared enter. I can't accept those. I don't have money to pay for. They're already paid for. Mr. Moretti was very specific about what you'd need. Elena moved into the room with the comfortable authority of someone who'd been doing this a long time. There's also breakfast in the kitchen. Nothing fancy, just coffee and pastries. I wasn't sure what you liked. The kindness in her voice made my throat tight. Why is he doing this? Elena's expression softened. Because Dante Moretti may be many things, but he's never been able to stand by while someone suffers, especially not women, and especially not violence. She paused at the door. Take your time. Shower, eat, rest. No one expects anything from you today except healing. After she left, I explored the shopping bags with trembling hands. Clothes in my exact size. Jeans, soft sweaters, comfortable shoes. Toiletries, the expensive kind that promised miracles in bottles. Even underwear and pajamas, chosen with such care that I knew a woman had done the shopping, not Dante himself. The bathroom was a revelation. I stood under water hot enough to scald, letting it beat against muscles that hadn't relaxed in months. The bruises on my ribs were spectacular, purple and yellow and green, a timeline of violence written on my skin. The ones on my wrists were fading to sickly yellow. By next week, they'd be gone. Until Derek made new ones. Except I wasn't going back. The realization hit me as I stood in that expensive bathroom, steam fogging the mirrors. I couldn't go back. Whatever happened next, whatever consequences came from this choice, I couldn't return to that apartment, to Derek's hands, to the constant calculation of how to survive each day. I dressed in jeans that fit perfectly and a sweater so soft it felt like a hug. The woman in the mirror looked less haunted than yesterday, but still scared, still uncertain. The smell of coffee drew me to the kitchen, where Elena had laid out a spread that made my stomach clench with hunger I'd been ignoring. Fresh pastries, fruit, yogurt, coffee in a French press that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget used to. I was halfway through a croissant when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I'd turned it on out of habit, and now regretted it. 17 missed calls from Derek, 34 text messages, escalating from confusion to anger to threats. Where are you? Answer your phone. This isn't funny, Olivia. If you're with another man, I swear to God, you're going to regret this. I'll find you. You can't hide from me. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the phone. The fear was instinctive, bred from 8 months of learning exactly what happened when Derek got angry, when I did something he perceived as defiance or disrespect or, "You're safe here." I spun to find Dante in the kitchen doorway, dressed more casually than last night in dark jeans and a black Henley that did nothing to diminish his commanding presence. If anything, he looked more dangerous without the suit. Raw power barely contained by expensive fabric. "He's going to come looking for me," I said, hating how my voice shook. "Derek doesn't accept being told no. When he finds out I'm here, with you, he won't find you. And if he does, he'll have to go through me first." Dante moved into the kitchen with that predatory grace I'd noticed before. "But that's not why I'm here. I came to tell you that I'm having your belongings moved from the apartment this afternoon. Is there anything specific you want to make sure is packed?" The casual way he'd arranged my entire life made me dizzy. "You can't just—" "Derek lives there too. Technically, it's his apartment. I'm not on the lease. He could say I'm stealing if I take anything. The apartment is in a building I own. Derek Foster has been subletting illegally for 8 months without my knowledge or permission. As of this morning, he has 72 hours to vacate the premises or face eviction proceedings." Dante's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing weather rather than upending my entire existence. "So anything in that apartment that belongs to you is yours to take without legal complications." I stared at him, trying to process. "You're evicting him." "I don't tolerate illegal sublets in my properties. It's a liability issue." The lie was transparent, and we both knew it. This was about control, about removing Derek's power, about ensuring I couldn't go back even if fear made me want to. He's going to be furious. Good. Something cold flickered across Dante's face. Fury makes men stupid. Stupid men make mistakes. And I'm very good at capitalizing on mistakes. The implied threat should have frightened me. Instead, I felt a savage satisfaction that someone was finally standing up to Derek, finally showing him that there were consequences for his violence. I need to call my manager at Romano's, I said, pushing away from the counter. Let them know I'm okay, that I'll be back to work tomorrow. You're not working tomorrow. I have bills to pay, I can't just… Your bills are handled. Rent, utilities, everything. Consider it part of your employment package. I'm promoting you to restaurant manager. The previous one retired last month, and I've been looking for a replacement. I actually laughed, the sound slightly hysterical. I'm a waitress, not a manager. I don't have experience running a restaurant. You know that restaurant better than anyone except Marco. You know the staff, the regulars, the rhythm of service, and you're intelligent enough to learn what you don't know. He leaned against the counter, studying me. Unless you'd prefer to keep waitressing, I can arrange that too. The offer was tempting, terrifying, but tempting. Management meant better pay, more stability, a career rather than just a job. It also meant being visible, being in charge, being the opposite of the invisible ghost I'd become. Why would you promote me? You barely know me. I know you show up on time, work harder than anyone else, and never complain even when you're clearly in pain. I know you're kind to the kitchen staff, patient with difficult customers, and thorough in ways that matter. That's enough for me to take a chance on. He paused. Unless you think I'm offering this because I expect something in return? The question hung between us, weighted with implications. Was that what this was? Rescue with strings attached? Protection with a price? Are you? I asked directly. Expecting something? I expect you to heal. I expect you to be safe. I expect you to eventually believe that you deserve both those things. His dark eyes held mine steadily. What I don't expect is gratitude that comes in forms you're not freely offering. I'm not Derek, Olivia. I don't take what isn't given willingly. The sincerity in his voice made something in my chest crack open. When was the last time someone had asked what I wanted instead of telling me what I should want? I'll think about the promotion, I said carefully. But I need to work. Sitting here doing nothing will make me crazy. Then don't sit here doing nothing. Elena can show you my home office upstairs. You can start reviewing the restaurant's operations, get familiar with the books, meet with Marco and the staff on video calls. He pushed off the counter, moving closer. But today, right now, you rest. Doctor's orders. What doctor? The one who'll be here in an hour to examine you properly. Make sure your ribs are just bruised and not broken. Check that there's no internal damage that needs addressing. I wanted to argue, to assert some control over my rapidly changing circumstances. But the truth was, my ribs hurt with every breath. My wrists ached, and I was exhausted in ways that went beyond physical. Okay, I agreed quietly. One day of rest. Then I start figuring out what comes next. That's all I'm asking. Dante reached out slowly, telegraphing his movement, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The touch was gentle, careful, and sent warmth spreading through me that had nothing to do with gratitude, and everything to do with awareness I had no business feeling. Finish your breakfast. The doctor will be here soon. He left me alone in the kitchen, and I sank back onto the bar stool, my heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. Dr. Sarah Chen arrived exactly 1 hour later, professional and efficient in her examination. She was around my age, with kind eyes and gentle hands that still made me flinch when she pressed against my ribs. 3 ribs badly bruised, Possibly one hairline fracture, she confirmed, making notes on her tablet. The good news is that there's no displacement, no internal bleeding, and with rest, they'll heal fine. The bad news is that rest is non-negotiable. No heavy lifting, no strenuous activity, and you need to ice regularly to reduce inflammation. How long until I can work normally? 2 weeks minimum for the ribs. The bruising on your wrists and arms will fade faster. She looked up from her tablet, expression serious. Olivia, I need to document these injuries. Mr. Moretti mentioned you might be pressing charges against your abuser. The word abuser sounded too clinical, too removed from the reality of Derek's hands and voice, and the particular quality of fear he inspired. But it was accurate. I don't know yet, I admitted. Part of me wants to, but the legal system isn't always kind to women in my situation, and Derek can be very charming when he wants to be. Very convincing. I understand. But if you do decide to pursue legal action, you'll have medical documentation to support your case. Dr. Chen handed me a card. This is my personal number. Call anytime, day or night, if you need anything. Medical advice, someone to talk to, whatever you need. After she left, I found myself alone in the apartment that was simultaneously too big and not big enough. The silence was deafening after months of living in constant tension, waiting for Derek's key in the lock, his footsteps, his voice. I explored the space properly now. The living room, with its comfortable furniture and bookshelves lined with actual books. The second bedroom that had been converted to a home office. The balcony that overlooked the city and made me dizzy when I stepped outside. Everything was beautiful and impersonal, like a luxury hotel rather than a home. But it was safe, and right now, safety mattered more than comfort. My phone buzzed again. Derek, of course. This time it was a voicemail, and curiosity made me listen to it despite knowing I shouldn't. Baby, I don't know what's going on, but you need to come home. I'm worried about you. Did something happen at work? Are you hurt? His voice was concerned, loving, the version of Derek he showed to the outside world. Look, I know we've been fighting lately. I know I've been stressed with work, and maybe I took it out on you, and I'm sorry for that. But we can work through this together, okay? Just come home. Please. I love you. The manipulation was so practiced, so smooth, that for a moment I felt the old guilt rising. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe if I just went home and apologized for disappearing, everything would be fine. Then I looked down at my wrists, at the fading bruises, and remembered the feeling of his hands squeezing until I thought bones would snap. Remembered the names he called me. Remembered the fear that had become my constant companion. I deleted the voicemail. The afternoon passed slowly. I tried to read, but couldn't focus. Tried to watch television, but the noise felt wrong. Eventually, I found myself standing at the windows, watching Chicago move below me, and wondering how I'd ended up here. 24 hours ago, I was Olivia Mitchell, waitress, victim, ghost. Now, I was Olivia Mitchell, under the protection of a man whose name made seasoned criminals nervous, living in luxury I couldn't afford, and facing a future I couldn't predict. Elena returned around 4 with actual groceries, real food, not just pastries, and showed me how to use the intimidatingly expensive appliances. She chatted while she organized the kitchen, talking about her own daughter who was studying medicine, about the neighborhood, about nothing and everything in a way that felt comfortable and maternal. Mr. Moretti called, she said as she was leaving. He'll be stopping by around 7 to check on you. He wanted me to tell you that your belongings are being delivered tomorrow morning, and that Derek was served with eviction papers this afternoon. My stomach clenched. How did he react? According to the process server, with a lot of shouting and threats. But Mr. Moretti has already filed for a restraining order on your behalf. The hearing is scheduled for next week. It was happening so fast. Too fast, maybe. Dante was systematically dismantling Derek's access to me, cutting off every avenue he might use to find me or hurt me. It should have felt controlling, like trading one cage for another. Instead, it felt like breathing for the first time in months. Dante arrived at exactly 7, carrying takeout bags that smelled incredible. "I thought you might be tired of eating alone," he said by way of greeting. "Elena mentioned you hadn't had a proper dinner yet." We ate at the dining table that had probably never been used. Pasta from Romano's that Marco had made specifically for me, according to Dante. Carbonara with extra pepper, the way I liked it, which meant Dante had noticed my preferences over 2 years of watching me work. "Derek was served the eviction papers," I said as we ate. "Elena told me." "He didn't take it well. Made threats about lawyers and police and various legal actions that would be laughable if they weren't so pathetic." Dante twirled pasta on his fork with practiced ease. "My legal team is prepared for anything he tries." "This must be costing you so much money. Lawyers, doctors, this apartment, all the clothes?" "Money is a tool, Olivia. I have more than I could spend in several lifetimes. Using it to help someone who needs help is the least complicated thing I do in any given day." If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Still, I should pay you back somehow, work off the debt or... There is no debt. His voice was firm. You owe me nothing. Not money, not gratitude, not anything you're not freely choosing to give. The sooner you understand that, the better. We ate in silence for a few minutes, but it was comfortable rather than awkward. I found myself stealing glances at him, trying to reconcile the dangerous reputation with the man who'd held me while I cried, who'd arranged doctors and lawyers and safety without asking for anything in return. "Can I ask you something?" I ventured. "Anything? Why aren't you married or dating? Someone like you with your resources and..." I gestured vaguely at him. "Everything. It seems like you'd have women lined up." A hint of a smile touched his mouth. "Women are often interested in Dante Moretti, the name and the power and the money. Very few are interested in just Dante, the man who likes old movies and terrible puns and has strong opinions about proper pasta preparation." "You like puns?" "Terrible ones. Elena's daughter refuses to speak to me for a full day after I told her that I was reading a book about anti-gravity and couldn't put it down." I laughed, surprised and genuine. "That is terrible. I warned you." His expression softened. "But to answer your actual question, I haven't found someone who sees me clearly and isn't frightened by what they see. Someone who understands that the things I do, the life I lead, come from necessity rather than preference. Someone strong enough to handle truth without flinching." The way he looked at me when he said it made something flutter in my chest. "And you think I'm that person? I think you're stronger than you realize. I think you've survived things that would break most people. And I think..." He paused, considering his words carefully. "I think we could be good for each other, given time and honesty, but only if that's something you want, without pressure or obligation." My heart was racing, awareness crackling between us like electricity. I just left an abusive relationship. I'm not exactly in a position to start something new. I know. Which is why I'm not asking for anything now except the chance to prove that not all men are like Derek Foster. That some of us understand the value of gentleness, of patience, of earning trust rather than demanding it. The sincerity in his voice made tears prick my eyes. What if I'm too broken? What if Derek damaged me so much that I can't trust anyone, can't be with anyone without being afraid? Dante reached across the table and took my hand, his touch warm and careful. "Then we take our time. We build trust slowly. And if friendship is all this ever becomes, that's okay too. I'd rather have you in my life as a friend than not at all. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that this impossible situation could become something real and good. But years of survival instinct screamed warnings about trading one form of control for another. I need time, I said finally. Time to heal, to figure out who I am without Derek's voice in my head telling me I'm worthless. Time to learn to trust myself again before I can trust anyone else. Take all the time you need. He squeezed my hand once before releasing it. I'm not going anywhere. We finished dinner talking about safer topics. The restaurant, Chicago, books we both loved. It felt normal in a way I'd forgotten relationships could feel. Easy conversation without calculation, without fear of saying the wrong thing and triggering anger. When he left around 9, I found myself disappointed. Wanting him to stay longer, to keep talking, to fill the silence that felt oppressive once I was alone again. I was in dangerous territory, and I knew it. Falling for my rescuer, confusing protection with affection, mistaking safety for love. All the warnings I'd ever heard about rebound relationships and trauma bonding echoed in my head. But when I climbed into that impossibly comfortable bed and closed my eyes, it was Dante's voice I heard saying, "You're safe now." And his face I saw before sleep claimed me. The next morning, I woke to the sound of voices in the living room. Male voices, unfamiliar and slightly alarming. I pulled on a robe, silk, expensive from the shopping bags, and crept to the bedroom door. Careful with that box, it's marked fragile. Where does the boss want everything? Guest bedroom for clothes, living room for the rest until she sorts through it. Moving men, bringing my belongings from the apartment I'd shared with Derek. I watched from the doorway as they carried in boxes and bags, my entire life reduced to maybe 20 containers worth of stuff. It wasn't until they brought in the last load that I saw him, Derek, somehow bypassing security, pushing past the movers into my apartment with fury written across his face. Olivia. His voice was a roar that made me flinch instinctively. What the hell do you think you're doing? You can't just leave. You can't just take everything and disappear with some... He stopped when he saw me. Really saw me in the expensive apartment with the city view and the furniture that cost more than his car. His expression cycled through shock, rage, and something calculating. So this is it? You're just trading up? Found some rich guy to take care of you and decided you're too good for me now? He started toward me, that familiar aggression building. You, ungrateful... He didn't get to finish. One of the movers, who I now realized was probably security, not a moving company, stepped between us smoothly, hand raised in a stopping gesture. "Mr. Foster, you need to leave, now. This is between me and my girlfriend. Your ex-girlfriend," I said, finding my voice despite the fear making my legs shake. "I'm not coming back, Derek. Whatever we had is over." "The hell it is?" He tried to push past the security guard who didn't budge. "You think you can just leave? After everything I've done for you? After I let you live with me? Supported you? Supported me?" The anger came from somewhere deep, finally overriding the fear. "You controlled me, isolated me from my friends, criticized everything I did and put your hands on me whenever you felt like it. That's not support. That's abuse. I never..." He stopped, aware of witnesses, aware that admitting violence would have consequences. "You're confused. That rich bastard has poisoned you against me. Once you're thinking clearly, you'll realize you made a mistake and come crawling back." "I won't." My voice was steady now, certain. "I'd rather be alone for the rest of my life than spend one more day afraid of you." Something ugly flickered across his face. "You're going to regret this, Olivia. Nobody leaves me. Nobody makes me look like a fool and gets away with it." "Mr. Foster?" A new voice, cold and absolutely lethal. Dante appeared from the elevator, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. You were served with eviction papers. You had 72 hours to vacate the premises, not to harass your ex-girlfriend in her new home. Derek's bravado cracked slightly when he saw Dante. Even someone as stupid as Derek could recognize real danger when it walked into a room wearing Armani. This is none of your business. It became my business when you put your hands on someone under my protection. Dante moved between Derek and me with that predatory grace, a barrier of controlled violence. And it became even more my business when you ignored a legal eviction and showed up where you're not welcome making threats. I didn't threaten anyone. You told Ms. Mitchell she would regret leaving you, that nobody leaves you, that she'll pay for making you look foolish. Dante's voice was conversational, almost pleasant, which made it more terrifying. Those sound like threats to me, and lucky for her, my security cameras caught every word. Derek's face paled. Look, I just want to talk to Olivia, work things out. There's nothing to work out. You're going to leave now. You're going to comply with the restraining order that's being filed today. And you're going to understand that if you come near Ms. Mitchell again, if you call her, text her, or so much as breathe in her direction, the consequences will be severe. Dante stepped closer, voice dropping to a register that made my skin prickle. And Derek, I'm very creative when it comes to consequences. The threat was clear, and Derek finally had enough sense to recognize when he was outmatched. He looked past Dante to me, and I saw desperation there mixed with rage. This isn't over, Olivia. Yes, I said firmly. It is. Security escorted him out, and I heard his protests echoing in the hallway until the elevator doors closed. Then silence, broken only by my ragged breathing as adrenaline crashed through my system. My legs gave out. I would have hit the floor, but Dante caught me, guided me to the couch, pressed my head between my knees when I started hyperventilating. Breathe, he instructed calmly. In through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it. You're safe. He's gone and he won't be back. He said it's not over. He meant it. Derek doesn't make empty threats. Neither do I. Dante crouched in front of me, hands on my knees, steady and grounding. Olivia, look at me. I forced my head up, met those impossibly dark eyes. Derek Foster will never touch you again. I have resources he can't imagine, reach he can't comprehend, and the willingness to use both to keep you safe. Do you believe me? I wanted to. God, I wanted to. What if he gets past your security? What if he finds a way? Then he'll discover that men who hurt women in my city tend to have very unfortunate accidents. The words were delivered with calm certainty. I told you. I don't make empty threats either. The implication should have terrified me. This was a man casually discussing violence as a solution to problems. But all I felt was relief that someone with real power was finally on my side. Thank you, I whispered. You don't need to thank me for basic human decency. He stood, pulling me up with him. Now, let's get these boxes unpacked and turn this place into something that feels like home, rather than a hotel room. Elena's bringing lunch in an hour, and I cleared my afternoon to help. You're going to help me unpack? Unless you'd prefer to do it alone? The offer, the willingness to just be present without expectation, made something crack in my chest. No, I'd like the company. We spent the afternoon sorting through my belongings, books and clothes and the accumulated detritus of a life lived in Derek's shadow. Dante carried boxes, hung clothes in the walk-in closet that had space for 10 times what I owned, and made me laugh with running commentary about my terrible taste in reality television. It felt normal, easy, like we were just two people setting up a home rather than a powerful man and the woman he'd rescued. By the time Elena arrived with lunch, the apartment looked lived in. My books on the shelves, my photos on the mantel, my clothes in the closet. Evidence that I existed, that I had a life beyond fear and survival. It looks good, Dante said as we ate sandwiches Elena had brought. Like you belong here. It feels temporary. Like any moment reality will intrude and I'll have to go back to. I stopped, unsure how to finish. To what you can afford? To what you think you deserve? His gaze was steady. Olivia, this isn't temporary unless you want it to be. And even then, even if you decide tomorrow that you want to leave, I'll help you find somewhere safe that you choose for yourself. But you don't have to go back to living in fear just because that's what feels familiar. The permission to stay, to build something here without obligation or debt, settled something in my chest. I want to start the manager training, I said suddenly, at the restaurant. I want to learn the business, become good at it, earn my place rather than having it given to me. Dante smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Then we start Monday. But first, you heal properly. Doctor's orders, remember? How could I forget? I returned his smile, feeling lighter than I had in months. You're very bossy about my medical care. Only because I care about the outcome. The words hung between us, weighted with meaning neither of us was quite ready to name. But it was there. This thing building between us, fragile and new and terrifying. And for the first time in 8 months, I felt something besides fear when thinking about the future. I felt hope. 2 months passed in a rhythm I'd never expected to find. Days spent at Romano's learning the business from Marco and the senior staff. Evenings in the Gold Coast apartment that had slowly transformed from temporary shelter into something dangerously close to home, and nights where sleep came easier, because Derek's voice had finally started to fade from my nightmares. The restraining order had been granted. Derek had violated it twice, once showing up drunk outside Romano's demanding to see me, once leaving threatening voicemails that the police documented. Both times, he'd spent a night in jail. Both times, he'd emerged angrier, but more cautious. Dante's reach was becoming clear to him, and even Derek's rage couldn't overcome his sense of self-preservation. I stood in Romano's office, my office now, still strange to think of it that way, reviewing the month's financials on a Tuesday afternoon when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. You look good in that blue dress. The one with buttons down the front. You're wearing it right now. Ice flooded my veins. I looked down at the dress I'd chosen this morning. Blue, buttons down the front, exactly as described. Which meant someone was watching me. Right now. My hands shook as I moved to the office window, searching the street below for Derek's car, his face. Any sign of him? The restaurant was in River North, busy with lunch traffic, dozens of people moving on the sidewalk. He could be any of them. Another text. Did you really think a piece of paper would keep me away? That your rich boyfriend could protect you? I've been watching for weeks, Olivia, learning your patterns. You're not as safe as you think. The door opened and I spun, heart hammering, but it was just Marco with questions about the evening's reservations. He took one look at my face and his expression shifted to concern. Olivia, what's wrong? I handed him my phone wordlessly, watching his face darken as he read the messages. I'm calling Mr. Moretti. No, I can handle. But Marco was already dialing, speaking in rapid Italian when Dante answered. I caught enough to know he was explaining the situation, emphasizing the immediacy of the threat. Marco handed the phone to me. He wants to talk to you. Olivia. Dante's voice was controlled, but I heard the steel underneath. Are you hurt? No, just scared. He's watching me, Dante. He's been watching me, and I didn't know. Didn't see. I need you to stay in the office with the door locked. Marco's going to stand guard outside. I'm 10 minutes away with security. Can you do that for me? His calm steadied me, gave me something to focus on beyond panic. Yes. Good girl, I'll be right. There. The line went dead. Marco was already positioning himself outside the office door, and I saw him pull something from his jacket. A weapon, small and efficient. Of course Marco was armed. Everyone in Dante's orbit probably was. I locked the door and moved away from the windows, settling into the desk chair while my mind raced. Derek had been watching me for weeks. While I'd been learning to feel safe again, learning to sleep without fear, he'd been out there cataloging my movements, planning something. The 9 minutes until Dante arrived felt like hours. When the knock finally came, 3 sharp raps followed by 2 softer ones, a pattern I recognized as his. I nearly sobbed with relief. He filled the doorway when I opened it, dressed in a dark suit that probably cost more than my car used to be worth, flanked by 2 men I recognized from building security. His eyes scanned me head to toe, checking for injury, before he pulled me against his chest in a brief, fierce embrace. "You're okay," he said against my hair. Not a question, a statement he needed to confirm. "I'm okay." But I was shaking, the adrenaline crash hitting hard now that he was here. Dante guided me back to the desk chair, crouching in front of me so we were eye level. "Tell me everything. Start from the first message." I walked him through it. The texts, the specific description of my clothes, the implication that Derek had been watching for weeks. Dante's expression grew progressively colder as I spoke, until he looked like something carved from ice. "He's escalating," one of the security men said. The jail time didn't deter him. It just made him more careful. And more dangerous. Dante stood, pulling out his phone. "I want surveillance footage from every camera within 3 blocks of this building for the past month. I want traffic cameras, security feeds from neighboring businesses, everything. Derek Foster is somewhere in that footage, and I want to know where he's watching from." He made several more calls, each one delivered in that clipped, commanding tone that made people jump to obey. Within 20 minutes, a laptop was set up in my office with feeds from dozens of cameras, a team of analysts already reviewing footage remotely. "You're not going back to the apartment tonight," Dante said when he finally ended his calls. "Not until we've located Derek and dealt with him permanently." "Where am I supposed to go?" "My home. The actual penthouse, not the guest apartment." His dark eyes held mine. "It's the most secure location I have, and I want you where I can personally ensure your safety." The idea of staying in Dante's personal space, crossing that boundary from professional distance to intimate proximity, made my pulse quicken for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. "Dante, I can't just move into your home." "You're not moving in. You're staying temporarily until the threat is neutralized." He softened slightly. "Olivia, I need to know you're safe. After the past 2 months, after watching you heal and start to trust again, I can't—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "I can't have something happen to you because I didn't take every precaution." The raw emotion in his voice made my throat tight. Somewhere in the past 2 months, this had stopped being about obligation or protection. We'd become something more, even if neither of us had named it yet. "Okay," I agreed quietly, but just until Derek's found. Relief flickered across Dante's face. "Thank you." Dante's penthouse was on the 43rd floor, 1 level above the guest apartment I'd been living in. The elevator required a special key to access it, and when the doors opened directly into his home, I understood why. The space was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows on 2 walls overlooking the city and the lake beyond. Furniture that was clearly custom-made, art that was definitely original, and everywhere evidence of the man rather than just his wealth. Books in Italian and English stacked on side tables, a vintage record player with a collection of jazz albums, photographs of a woman who must have been his mother. "The guest room is down that hall," Dante said, gesturing. "But I'd prefer if you stayed in the master suite with me. Not—" He stopped, choosing his words carefully. "Not for anything inappropriate, but the master bedroom has a panic room built into the closet." If something happens, if somehow Derek gets past all my security, you'll have somewhere absolutely safe to lock yourself until help arrives. The thought of sharing a bedroom with Dante made heat coil in my stomach. 2 months of careful distance, of professional boundaries, of late-night conversations that stopped just short of crossing lines we'd both been aware of. All of that would be tested by proximity. "Where would you sleep?" I asked. "There's a couch in the sitting area, or I can take one of the guest rooms if that makes you more comfortable." I should have said yes, should have maintained the distance that kept this safe and professional. Instead, I heard myself say, "The couch is fine, as long as you're sure about this." I've never been more sure of anything. Elena arrived an hour later with clothes she'd collected from the guest apartment, along with dinner from a restaurant I couldn't pronounce. She fussed over me like a mother hen, making sure I had everything I needed, before pulling Dante aside for a conversation in rapid Italian that I couldn't follow. When she left, Dante found me standing at the windows watching the city lights flicker on as dusk fell. "Elena's concerned," he said, coming to stand beside me. "She thinks I'm handling this wrong, that bringing you here crosses professional lines." "Does it?" "Probably." He was quiet for a moment. "Olivia, I need to be honest with you about something. These past 2 months, spending time with you, watching you heal and become yourself again, it's changed things for me. The way I feel about you has nothing to do with protection or obligation anymore." My heart hammered against my ribs. "How do you feel about me?" He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his dark eyes made my breath catch. "Like you're the first thing I think about when I wake up, and the last thing before I sleep. Like watching you laugh is worth more than anything I've ever bought or owned. Like the idea of Derek Foster putting his hands on you again makes me want to commit violence I'd normally consider beneath me. Dante, I'm not asking for anything," he continued. "You're still healing, still learning to trust yourself and the world again. The last thing you need is pressure from me. But I wanted you to know, to understand that this," he gestured between us, "isn't one-sided." I'd known, of course. Had felt the tension building between us during late-night conversations about books and childhood memories and dreams we'd set aside. Had noticed the way his touch lingered, the way his eyes followed me when he thought I wasn't looking. Had noticed my own responses, the way my pulse quickened when he entered a room, the disappointment when he left, the dangerous warmth that spread through me whenever he smiled. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Not of you, but of myself. Of making another mistake. Of confusing gratitude with something deeper. Of being too broken to know the difference." "Then we take our time. We build trust slowly. And if this never becomes more than friendship, I'll accept that." He reached up carefully, giving me time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "But Olivia, you're not broken. You're healing, which is different. And you're stronger than you give yourself credit for." The gentleness in his touch, the sincerity in his voice, made tears prick my eyes. What if Derek ruins this before we even get a chance to see what it could be? He won't. I promise you he won't. We stood there as darkness fell completely, close enough to touch but maintaining careful distance, and I felt the future shifting into something new and terrifying and full of possibility. The analysts found Derek 3 days later. He'd been watching from a vacant office building across from Romano's, using binoculars and a telephoto lens to track my movements. The building's security was laughable. He'd been breaking in through a back door every afternoon. "We have him on camera for the past 4 weeks," one of Dante's men reported during a meeting in the penthouse. I sat beside Dante on the couch while security footage played on the large screen. "Same time every day, 2 to 5 p.m. watching the restaurant. He's also been following her route home, though he hasn't attempted approach since the restraining order violations." Watching Derek on screen, seeing his face twisted with obsession as he photographed me through the restaurant windows, made nausea roll through my stomach. This was worse than I'd imagined. Systematic, calculated, the behavior of someone building to something violent. What's the next step? I asked, proud that my voice stayed steady. Dante exchanged glances with his head of security. Legally, we have enough to have him arrested for stalking and restraining order violations. He'd serve time, likely 6 months to a year. And illegally? I knew there were other options, had known since the beginning that Dante operated in spaces the law didn't touch. I make him disappear. Not permanently, Dante added quickly, seeing my expression. But Derek Foster could wake up in a city where he has no resources, no connections, and very clear instructions about what happens if he ever returns to Chicago. The moral implications should have bothered me more, but looking at that footage, seeing the evidence of Derek's obsession, I felt only cold determination. I want him gone, I said firmly. I don't care about revenge or justice or watching him suffer in prison. I just want him out of my life permanently. Then that's what we'll do. Dante dismissed the security team with instructions I deliberately didn't listen to. When we were alone, he turned to me with concern in his eyes. Are you okay? I will be, once he's actually gone. I leaned into Dante's side, accepting the arm he wrapped around my shoulders. Is it wrong that I don't feel guilty about this? About having him forcibly removed from the city? It would be wrong if you felt nothing. But guilt? No. Derek made his choices. Every time he put his hands on you, every time he terrorized you, every day he spent stalking you. Those were his choices. This is just consequences finding him. We sat in silence for a while, and I let myself feel the solid warmth of him, the security of being held without fear. These past 3 days in his penthouse, sleeping in his bed while he took the couch despite my protests, sharing breakfast and dinner and late-night conversations, it had felt like a glimpse of what life could be. Can I ask you something? I said eventually. Always. Why aren't you sleeping in your own bed? The couch can't be comfortable. It's not. But the alternative is lying 3 feet away from you all night knowing I can't touch you, and that's its own form of torture. His voice was rough, honest. This is easier. Heat pooled low in my stomach at the admission. What if I wanted you closer? Dante went very still. Olivia, I'm not asking for anything you're not willing to give, but these past 3 days, waking up and knowing you're just in the next room, it's made me realize something. I pulled back to look at him directly. I trust you. Completely. And maybe I'm still healing. Maybe I'm not ready for everything. But I'm tired of fear dictating my choices. I'm tired of letting Derek's voice in my head tell me I don't deserve good things. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to explore this, whatever this is between us. I want to know what it feels like to be touched by someone who's gentle, who asks permission, who cares about my pleasure as much as his own. My face heated, but I forced myself to continue. I want to stop being afraid of wanting things. Dante's hand came up to cup my face, thumb brushing across my cheekbone. We go at your pace. The moment you want to stop, we stop. No questions, no pressure, no disappointment. I know. He kissed me then, and it was nothing like Derek's demanding, punishing kisses. Dante kissed like he had all the time in the world, soft and exploring, letting me set the pace. His lips moved against mine with devastating gentleness, asking rather than taking. I melted into him, hands sliding up to tangle in his hair, and felt 2 months of careful restraint finally breaking. Dante's arm tightened around my waist, pulling me closer, and the low sound he made against my mouth sent heat racing through me. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were nearly black with want. Bedroom, he said, voice rough. If we're doing this, we're doing it properly. He stood, pulling me up with him, and led me down the hall to the master suite I'd been sleeping in alone. The bed was massive, ridiculously comfortable, and suddenly intimidating now that I was looking at it with new intent. Dante must have sensed my nervousness because he stopped at the foot of the bed, turning to face me. "We don't have to do anything tonight. We can just sleep, actually sleep, and take our time with everything else." "I want this," I said firmly. "I'm just nervous. It's been a long time since I wanted someone to touch me, and I'm worried I stopped, unsure how to voice the fear. "Worried you'll freeze? Or panic? Or not enjoy it?" His hands framed my face gently. "Olivia, whatever happens, it's okay. If you need to stop, we stop. If you need me to slow down, I slow down. This isn't about performance or expectations. It's just about us, learning each other." The permission to be imperfect, to not have to manage his emotions alongside my own, made something in my chest crack open. "Okay. Yes. I want this." Dante kissed me again, slower this time, walking me backward until my legs hit the bed. We sank down together, and his hands were careful as they found the buttons of my shirt, working them open with patient deliberation while his mouth never left mine. When he finally pulled back to look at me, laid out on his bed in just my bra and slacks, his expression made me feel beautiful in ways I'd forgotten were possible. "You're stunning," he said simply. "Every part of you." His hands mapped my body with reverence, fingers tracing old bruises that had faded to nothing, as if he was erasing Derek's touch and replacing it with his own. When I tensed, old reflexes kicking in, he immediately stilled, waiting for me to breathe through it and relax again. "That's it," he murmured against my skin. "Take your time. We have all night." The care he took, the attention he paid to every reaction, every breath, every subtle signal, it was overwhelming in the best way. By the time our clothes were gone and his weight settled between my thighs, I was trembling with want, rather than fear. "Tell me if anything doesn't feel right," Dante said, pressing kisses along my jaw. "Promise me." "I promise." What followed was tender and intense, and nothing like I'd experienced before. Dante moved with careful control, watching my face constantly, adjusting based on my responses. When I gasped, he did it again. When I tensed, he slowed. And when I finally shattered beneath him, he held me through it like I was something precious. Afterward, tangled together in sheets that smelled like him, I felt completely safe for the first time in longer than I could remember. Dante's arms were solid around me, his heartbeat steady under my ear, and the city lights painted patterns on the ceiling above us. "You okay?" he asked softly. "More than okay." I pressed a kiss to his chest. "That was perfect." "You were perfect?" His hand stroked through my hair. "Thank you for trusting me." "Thank you for being worth trusting." We lay in comfortable silence until I felt sleep pulling at me. Just before I drifted off, I heard Dante whisper, "I love you, Olivia Mitchell. I know it's too soon and probably terrible timing, but I love you." I should have been scared by the confession, should have worried about moving too fast or mistaking intensity for love. Instead, I felt only certainty settling in my chest. "I love you too," I whispered back. Derek disappeared from Chicago 3 days later. According to the reports Dante shared with me, he'd been picked up by men who worked for Dante, driven to St. Louis, and given a very clear explanation of what would happen if he ever returned to Illinois or attempted contact with me. He'd also been given $10,000, enough to start over, enough to remove any excuse for coming back. The restraining order remained in effect, now backed by resources Derek couldn't hope to match. Dante's people would be monitoring him periodically, ensuring he stayed away. "It's over," I said aloud, testing the words. We were back in the guest apartment. My apartment. I was learning to think of it. A week after Derek's removal from my life. "He's actually gone. He's gone." Dante pulled me close, and I settled against his chest with the ease of familiarity we'd developed. How does it feel? Strange. Like I should be relieved or celebrating, but mostly I just feel tired. Like I've been holding my breath for months and finally remembered how to exhale. That's normal. Your body's been in survival mode. It'll take time for your nervous system to understand the threat is really gone. I tilted my head back to look at him. How do you know so much about trauma responses? I grew up watching my mother try to recover from my father's violence. I learned to recognize the signs, understand the process. His expression was distant, caught in memory. She never fully healed. Before she died. That's why this, he gestured between us, matters so much to me. Making sure you actually get the chance to heal properly. The raw honesty made my throat tight. I'm sorry you lost her. Me too. But she'd have liked you. You have the same kind of strength she did. Not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that bends instead of breaking. We spent the evening talking about futures, about what came next now that the immediate threat was gone. I wanted to continue at Romano's, was genuinely enjoying the work of management. Dante was planning to step back from some of his more dangerous operations, delegate more to trusted people, prioritize family over empire. Family? I echoed. Is that what we are now? I'd like us to be. His arms tightened around me. I know it's fast. I know we've only been together officially for a week. But Olivia, I've been falling for you for months. I've seen you at your worst and your best. And I want all of it. Even the parts that wake up with nightmares? The parts that still flinch at sudden movements? Especially those parts. Because they're proof of what you survived, and they'll heal with time and patience. He pressed a kiss to my temple. I'm not going anywhere. 6 months ago, I'd been invisible, serving tables and hiding bruises, believing I deserved the violence Derek inflicted. Now I was standing in a beautiful apartment, held by a dangerous man who'd proven himself gentle where it mattered, building a future I'd never imagined possible. I want this, I said firmly. Whatever we're building, whatever comes next, I choose this. I choose you. And I choose you. Every day, for as long as you'll have me. 3 months later, I stood in front of Romano's reviewing the evening's reservations when Marco appeared in my doorway with a knowing smile. Mr. Moretti is here to see you. Dante appeared behind him, dressed in a dark suit that still made my pulse quicken even after months together. Do you have a few minutes? For you? Always. Marco discreetly disappeared and Dante closed the office door behind him. Instead of sitting, he moved to stand in front of me, and something in his expression made my heart rate pick up. 5 months ago, I caught you serving tables in my restaurant with bruises on your wrists and fear in your eyes, he began. I didn't know then that you'd become the most important person in my life, that watching you heal and grow stronger would give me more satisfaction than anything I'd ever accomplished. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and my breath caught. Olivia Mitchell, I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I'm not even asking you to marry me this year. But I am asking if you'll let me promise you a future. If you'll wear this ring as a symbol that we're building toward forever, at whatever pace feels right for both of us. He opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond, set in a band that looked like twisted vines, organic and beautiful without being ostentatious. This isn't pressure, he continued. It's a promise of intention, a commitment to keep choosing each other, to keep building this life we've started. So, will you? Tears blurred my vision as I nodded. Yes. Yes to the promise, to the future, to all of it. He slid the ring onto my finger and it fit perfectly, catching the light like captured stars. Then he kissed me, soft and deep, while my phone buzzed with the first reservation of the evening and the restaurant hummed with life beyond the office door. 5 months from invisible to engaged, from broken to healing, from survival to actually living. I love you, I whispered against his mouth. I love you too. Forever, if you'll have me. Forever sounds perfect. And for the first time in my entire adult life, I actually believed in forever again. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.